you have some loyal customers because they are the owners, the same ones are the customers. But then there are issues like they want to push prices down, as Robert was mentioning. Then we go to
one more minute to go to.
Okay. Then we go to number 5. Revenues. So I will skip some of this. On revenues, what TENET does is they look at all the costs and then they add about 7% overheads. So that makes their services cheaper, relatively cheaper to compare to anybody else on the market. Then because I don't have the time to go through this, but you can go through the presentations will be online and the paper will be there. You can see all their key partners, who they need to do their business and their cost structures, what is it that costs them, and their key activities, the things that they do, and the key resources, the resources that they need to manage the business. So that's how the business model canvas works. So with this, you can have, if for any other NREN, you can have this piece of paper with all these activities and all these details listed. And I have not seen this from start. We have not tested this, but I only did this on an existing NREN. But I don't know how it would work for an NREN that you are just beginning to build. Maybe it would work, but where it has been used for commercial companies, it has worked. And a number of examples are included in the business model generation, a business governance, business model generation book, which you can also find online. I will not spend time on that. I will go to those conclusions, which as I go, you'll be reading them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tiwonge. I'm sorry to reduce a bit, but you have been using 16 minutes. That was 3 minutes free from UbuntuNet Alliance. Free of charge. Okay. The next presenter is a very known face of our community. This is my predecessor, former CEO of UbuntuNet Alliance. Tuzu, your presentation is on
thank you very much.
The NREN of the future of Africa. You have 12 minutes. Again, I will give you the contact to Tiwonge to summarize in the SIA point that you would like your presentation to go to the report. We are making the report from our side, but it's better to get input from the presenter himself.
Thank you very much, Pascal. As we finish the technical support here, I can tell you the first one. As they set it up, it's a pleasure to be back home. I've been part of the development of NREN, and I was talking to Sabine how 4 years ago we sat in a small room with about 20 people launching NREN, and see the change today and seeing more than 150 people in this room is really amazing. Congratulations, NREN. It's good to see some old faces. I know Nee is not here, he has left. People who were able to experience the days of downloads, internet access via the north-south satellites. So whenever the satellite passed over, you got a window to download your email. And at some point, we went to dial-up. Things have moved on quite a lot since then. It's good to see some of our missionary pioneers. I call them people like Steve Song, Beyond Person, and the new generation of missionaries who are actually female, like Catherine, my younger sister, Catherine Stuva, and Sabine. Sabine is not in the room anymore. Now, fortunately, the beauty of speaking last is that my foundation has been built, so I can take it easy and just make the few key points I would like to make. We're talking about the future NREN in Africa, the successful NREN. And I should be very clear that this is not prescriptive. This is trying to create a framework through which we can achieve many of the things that have been talked about. What is the reality is that we have had many success stories, but we have also had many disappointing stories, and I could mention some of them. So our analysis is based on experience and observation and try to give NRENs a clear framework within which they can try to shape their own destiny. We have had too many stillbirths, we have had too many stunted children. I don't know if there's anybody here from Ebale in Congo, or Maren in Malawi. I mean, these are children born a long time ago, but they are still crawling, and that is a bit of a challenge. So the question is, what goes wrong? What is really happening to us? And that's what we want to try and give some answers to. And we start with the organization itself. And like I said, the last three presentations have kind of provided the basis and the background for some of the quick remarks I'll make. Models. The first challenge is that we focus too much on form rather than focusing on function. The wheel was invented for a purpose. They did not start with you and then say, wait a minute, I've got something around here, what can we utilize it for? We focus too much on form in looking at our organization. And when I look back at some of the earlier workshops we used to have, it was all about form. What kind of NREN should you have? I was listening to a story yesterday, I forget which country it is, in West Africa, where they started with collaboration before they went to the NREN. So the NREN was shaped around something that the universities wanted to achieve, not the other way around. But nowadays we quite often form organizations without any idea whatsoever of what it is we are going to do. And therefore we start transplanting models. Tiwonge has just presented the South African model, and you say, okay, this could work in Uganda, and you try that and find that it's a totally different environment, and therefore that model never works. So this is my first key point, that we must focus on function. What is it that we want to achieve in our different countries? And what kind of organizations do we want to put in place to achieve that? And even as we think about those, think about the environment. We have got different socio-economic environment, we have got different technology environments, we have got different cultural environments. Now culture is often ignored as it is not part of it, but culture is very much part of technology. If you don't take those three into account in shaping your end, and then you cannot survive. Remember that one of the key rules of ecology is that one, you must adapt the environment, and two, you must be responsive to change. If you don't have those two as parameters in your NREN, then your NREN is doomed to a very short future, because when there's major change, and major change comes all the time, then it means that your NREN collapses. So which of those two survived, and why? It's very interesting that the simpler organisms always survive. And the private sector knows this very well. So you've got the private sector, and organizations are seen and lean. Short channels of communication, agility and everything. And then you come to NRENs, we start sometimes emulating governments. And I've been horrified sometimes to see some NRENs building up the human resource, more and more layers of human resource, until like most governments, they become like the astrological black holes. You know, a black hole sucks in everything. So most of our governments, they suck in more human resource, more finances, until eventually everything's about the organization rather than about its function. I've seen NRENs going along this path, and I hope that they can recover from that very quickly. And then the other thing which we must talk about is the monopoly thinking, because whether you like it or not, your NRENs are currently monopolies. And monopolies are self-centered. They don't think about efficiency, they don't think about productivity, they don't think about minimizing cost per unit. They think more about looking at the survival of the organization. And those are the black holes I talked about. A monopoly is not innovative. And many NRENs, even in this continent and outside, actually falling into this trap. I've seen them. Because you are guaranteed resources from government, for example, you lose innovation. If you are not guaranteed resources, you have to survive, because normally money destroys innovation. When you don't have money, you really start applying your mind. We're not saying that money is not important, and I'll emphasize this later on. And I think the sweet spot has been pointed out by both Bram and by Robert. It is very important, but let's not utilize money or permit money to destroy our innovativeness, because that's what NRENs were about in the first place. Creating solutions in impossible situations, not throwing resources at each and every problem that we get. Let's not forget that. Now when the competition comes, will it survive? And this is why many NRENs in the African continent are now scared, because the private sector is coming in and offering cheaper and cheaper bandwidth, and yet they are saying that they are selling bandwidth. Can you survive the competition? Now forget that. If you take, for example, DRC Sudan, is it ASREN which is going to provide services to Sudan, or is it the UbuntuNet Alliance? You're already in competition whether you like it or not. And that who delivers what Sudan wants more efficient and cost effectively is going to win out. In our own countries, it is going to happen. And I can foresee a future, colleagues, where there are more than 2 NRENs in each country. Let's not take it for granted that will be one. The number of universities is going to increase, and soon people start saying, why don't we compete with these guys? They have become too arrogant. That's what started telecommunication liberalization in the first place, for the arrogance of the incumbent operators. So if you become arrogant, we're actually creating incentive for competing NRENs alongside ours. Shall we survive that competition? I think this has come out in one way or another that we must have societal missions in our NRENs. Let's not forget that even as we listen to our colleagues from Europe, from the Netherlands and others from the USA, we live in different environments. We face major challenges of development. Now if you want to find that sweet spot where you're getting government support and support from our universities, you must be responsive to local needs, which means that we must come off the high pedestal that we supply on the universities and do with the universities, and engage in the social development discourse. What are the challenges in our country? If there is no peace in our borders, if there is strife, what can we as NRENs do about it? Because we've got the thinking brains behind us. Now this will sound strange to those from Europe, maybe. But yes, if you are living in an environment and want government to support you, then you must be responsive to the needs of that government of the time. You must be part of the times, otherwise you are going to be seen as being purely elitist. And therefore this is very important that in our different countries, especially developing countries, we say, how do we respond to the needs of the country? What is our societal mission? If we don't do that, the African Renaissance is never going to happen. Then the business, and I'm glad again this has been well covered. So I look at it from just 4 different perspectives. It is true that we get support from governments, and I think especially in Africa we do need this because the universities are really quite resourced. But let's not forget that even as we do that, we must put on the cap of private sector thinking. And these 2 things can go together. Now it is interesting, governments realized a long time ago that government, being processes and procedures bound, is unable to deliver services efficiently, so they started parastatals. And from the parastatals are then formed in the shape of government, which is why they failed. I don't know who you remember Air Freak. Yes, 1 or 2 do. And this was one of the premier airlines of the African continent. They were literally going everywhere. It is now history because it was made an airline and then it was given a government format, and of course it collapsed. Now many airlines are going in this direction. Think like government and you are finished. So if you are thinking private sector, then you need to have, first of all, a small efficient board, and please do not make it representative. I'm not prescribing, because democracy does not run a business. So if you have got an oversight body, for example, where you need each of the countries to have a say, then that REN is going to collapse. Or each of the universities to have a say is going to collapse. Business and competition is not about democracy. It's about a small body that is able to be forward-looking, taking decisions, and sometimes even a bit ruthless if necessary, so that the organization can survive. That's where we must go if we think we are going to succeed as RENs. And then building these big structures. You can try to engage another engineer all the time, another public relations person, and so on. But for example, do you need to do these things yourselves? Can we get part-time services? Can we outsource some of the services? How can we make our operations efficient? Efficient, responsive to the customer, delivering at the lowest possible price. This is very important. Otherwise, again, if you don't think like that, we shall not survive. Being a research and education network is not a business. That lady there is in the business of love. She does not say, come and buy my flowers. Say, I'll improve your love life. So what is your business as an NREN? Do you actually have a business? It's very horrifying that you might think about it as the CEO and say, wait a minute, we actually do not have a business. Businesses are not about the goods we provide, it's about the experience you give to the customer. So somebody buys an Apple phone, a MacBook, or maybe a Samsung, whatever it is. They are not buying the device, they are buying the experience that device gives to them. So what kind of experience are you giving to your customers, your clients? Either the universities if you're national REN, or the national REN if you're regional REN. What kind of experience do you give them? What is it that they are buying from you? People don't fly Emirates because it will get them to the destination, because many other flights will do that. It's the experience of that ride and the service and everything. That's what you buy from Emirates. What are people buying from you as the research and education network? If you don't have an answer to that, you don't have a business. Innovation is the hallmark of success. In the business world, it says that if a product is successful, it is already obsolete. And I sometimes sympathize with the younger generation of RENs, because they are getting a lot of advice from a different time. I mean, some of us grew up in times when connectivity was the main thing. But times have moved on. So you need to take this into account, that maybe if I'm advising, I'm coming from a totally different perspective. What is it that you are innovating in as a research and education network? That is very critical and very important. If you don't have any innovation in your organization, then there's nothing you are really doing. Yes? I think people won't see me better. Thank you very much. But my glove see the slides better, I think. What is your brand? Now there's this popular experience. I don't know how many of you have children that go to a school concert and your child performs very well, and then you start telling all the neighbors, that is my son, or that is my daughter. Pride in the person. Now think about your research and education network and your clients. Do they say that about you? Do they want to associate you and say, yes, I'm proud of being a member of WACREN, they're doing this for us. I'm proud because I'm a member of the Alliance. Is that kind of brand? Do you have a brand? If you don't have that kind of brand, then your customers are going to fade away. You see, if you combine brand with a good experience, you start finding that price starts becoming inconsequential. When you find something you really like, the price becomes inconsequential. But if you don't like it, price becomes an excuse for abandoning it. So think like that. What is your brand? Do you have anything to offer that excites and makes your clients love you? Now finally, the services. And I'm glad this has come up many times. Our business is no longer, it's not connectivity. People sometimes find this very shocking, and I've said many times, and this goes back more than 20 years ago, before we even had internet in Makerere University, and I told them that, look here, connectivity and bandwidth must become like oxygen. You don't go to Dakar and start worrying, shall I get enough oxygen to breathe in Dakar? We take it for granted. Universities, countries must have sufficient bandwidth so that we think about it like we think about oxygen, which means never. You take it for granted that I can exercise and breathe in very fast and I still have enough oxygen, or I can rest and breathe in slowly and still have enough oxygen. That is bandwidth. We must transition this stage as fast as possible, ensure that there is more connectivity than people need. To me, the principle of connectivity is always oversupply at the lowest price so that people don't even notice it anymore. So I'm talking about a level beyond that. If we stay at that level for too long, we shall be knocked out. I don't know, as read Catch 22. This is the story which has been told by Robert about competing with service providers. Australian was competing with colleagues in selling eggs, and they're wondering, how does he buy eggs at a lower price, at the same price as they buy it, and sell them at a lower price and still make a profit, until they discover that Australian owned the egg farm. So same with bandwidth. We don't own the bandwidth. The people who are competing with own it, and therefore we can never compete on that. So let's not focus on that. Let's get out of that and then get on to the real business. 1 minute to go to the 1 minute. Thank you very much. My minute can be quite elastic. But thanks, Pascal. I try to respect that to the best of my ability. We must invest in knowing what our clients want, and this is often a shortcoming. We normally assume for the universities, we assume for the countries, we don't take the effort to establish what it is that they really want. That is a critical step if we want to be the successful NREN of the future. And then the issue of mobility, collaboration, cloud services. Colleagues, this is part of the African tradition. Technology has simply enabled us to move it on. And we talk about cloud services. Think about the storytellers, our parents and grandfathers. All of them knew the stories and history of the tribe or the clan or the rest or whatever. So they were like human access points to the human cloud. Now if we talk about cloud services, we're just taking that human knowledge which was in our minds and being transmitted oral and saying, let's put this online. The nomadic tribes of Africa are a permanent feature of this continent. Mobile phones did not start in Africa, but have driven mobile revolution. And therefore these things are intrinsic to our culture. It is a very easy step to try and seize those so that we can then build onto them and create the kind of environment, the kind of experience that our new generation of users are looking for. Forget about Robert and I and me and so on and Bubaka. We are going off the stage, look at the new generation and give them what they need. And then as I conclude, elitism, and I think I've talked about that, we have to be very careful about that. We have got different development levels in our continent, and therefore it becomes a responsibility to learn about everything in our communities that is important. I'll leave you with this message from Tiwonge, and I hope you have had an opportunity to read the entire speech, because I just took about 5 sentences to create some kind of continuous meaning, but this is one of the most impressive speeches that has been made in the last 10 years. Please Google it if you haven't read it. I am an African. The lines I've taken out say I am an African. My mind and my knowledge of myself is formed by the victories that are the jewels in an African crown. The victories we earned from Isandwalna to Khartoum as Ethiopians, as the Ashanti of Ghana, as Berbers of the desert. The pain of the violent conflict that the peoples of Liberia and Somalia, of the Sudan, of Burundi and Algeria is a pain also bear. The dismal shame of poverty, suffering and human degradation of my continent is a blight we share. The evolution of humanity says that Africa reaffirms that she is continuing her rise from the ashes. Whatever the setbacks of the moment, nothing can stop us now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this presentation. An inspired quote from Becky. I'm now going to open the floor for a few questions. We are a bit running late. Take a first round of 3 questions, then we'll see the rest. The floor is open. Questions, comments, remarks? The question can go to the 4 presentations. I can see somebody's hand raised. Is this Ben Isha? 1. Second person for second question. Okay, Ben, go ahead with your question.
Okay, thank you, Pascal. My question goes to Tusubira, and it has to do with the some of the NRENs on the continent that have been around for some time, that had had boards of representation, as you suggested, and now looking at the new dynamics of how we move forward, we need to try and find ways of realigning the board structure and the organization structure itself. How do you advise we proceed in moving forward from now? I mean, looking at the legacy and look at how we need to adopt this. I mean, what's the best way to become this new NREN for the new Africa we're talking about?
Tuzu?
Thank you very much. I'm not sure I can give a comprehensive answer to that, but to me, everything starts with taking a very honest look at oneself. Sadly, we often over-evaluate our own achievements and the importance, and that makes us blind to the shortcomings we have. If you think that not, get somebody you trust to really look at you from the outside and tell you what is wrong. But it is true that an organization that objectively looks at themselves can discover where the flaws are and find that we are no longer ready for the future. Maybe we can have a discussion offline a bit more about that, because it is a very difficult question to answer in a short time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone from Main One? Main One, can you please come and make your 2-minute presentation? Main One is one of the key sponsors of this event. Has been given this slot.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the staff and management of Main One, we want to congratulate the leadership of WACREN. We've been partners in terms of cross-fertilization of ideas for a very long time, and we're happy to continue with you on this journey. Main One is an African company that is operating out of Nigeria. We are fast becoming a dominant player in the West African sub-region. Let me just quickly share with you some of the infrastructures we have that we intend to put before the NRENs and the WACREN as they look forward to building the research networks. We have looked at your requirements from these 3 broad perspectives, which is to connect, and then to communicate, and then to collaborate. And we understand that your connections are not just simple connections like you will see with the commodity kind of services we provide, but the kind of connectivities that link you to other research networks and so on and so forth. And we also understand that there will be some differences in terms of your requirements for the kind of communications that traverses the networks that you run your research networks on. And also in collaborating, we understand that you have multiple layers of maybe projects or the kind of research that are going on that will require different kind of circuit switching and so on. Now, this is where we are today. Main One, I did say, is a sub-regional major player, and we have our point of presence. Sorry, our cable landing station actually is in Nigeria and Ghana. We just concluded this part to Cameroon, Kiribi in Cameroon, and then we have major point of presence in other locations like Ivory Coast, Togo, Burkina Faso, and so many other places. But we have 3 major landing stations now, which is Nigeria, Ghana, and Kiribi in Cameroon. Okay, so we also have a data center that is built to meet all the global certification that is required. This could also come along as an additional advantage to WACREN should you require to host your research information or your data in the continent. We are right ahead to partner with you in that regard. We are also already paired with some of the global players in terms of carriers for education and research network all across the globe. So it will be an easy task if we are to interconnect you with any of the research networks worldwide. And these are the kind of services we believe will still run, even though we know your connectivities, your communications, and your collaboration system will be different. It will still centers around some of these products, which include IPLCs, national and domestically secured, branch connectivities, MPLS, neutrally secured, and also in some extent, maybe IP transit secured, so that your national body or the universities do not have multiple cost heads, maybe being on the NREN or the WACREN network and then requiring to buy internet access as a separate service. We also look at co-location services, disaster recovery, backup storage, cloud services, and also voice communications as well. Thank you. I didn't intend to spend more than my 2 minutes, so that I will respect the organizers. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this takes us to the end of this session. I was very pleased to coordinate these sessions, and I want to thank the 4 presenters. Bram, your presentation was really interesting. Particularly EDIROM is something that we should think about for Wakren community. And Robert is a well-established model of NREN that I think will inspire our community members. And the Tiwonge Rapporteur, which is part of your MPhil study, is very interesting. And I think since you will be on the website, our colleagues, NREN CEO in this room, should have a look and see what can be taken from there and readjusted to their own environment. And Tuzu, of course, you have very inspiring words and presentation of the future of African NREN. It's well appreciated. I want you to join me to thank the 4 presenters, but before that, I've been told that your badge will be necessary for you to have access to the restaurant. So saying we are going to have lunch, you will need your badge to show before you have access to the restaurant. Bon appetit, and thank you for the 4 presenters.
Is there a mic?
I wish you will enjoy your lunch, but please be back on time, especially the speakers, so that we make sure we start on time. In addition to that, I want to have the organizers to coordinate with the remote speakers. So please be back on time. Enjoy your lunch.